the world's only one-star airline is expanding. Visitors say the national carrier Air Koryo is diversifying its business.
Aircraft departed Pyongyang's Sunan International Airport without any passengers on board.
The United Nations accuses the company of being involved in illegal smuggling.
North Korea just started a new airline and everyone is insane. Imagine being on an old plane that feels like it belongs in a museum rather than the sky. That's Air Koryo, the world's only one-star airline. The adventure takes a real turn as you sit in the creaky, loud plane surrounded by locals who seem right at home. How safe can it be flying in a plane that belongs in history books? Let's dive into the thrilling and mysterious world of Air Koryo, the world's most bizarre airline. A path back in time with Air Koryo. The whole experience feels like going back in time, giving you an old, nostalgic feeling. It's not like any other airline out there. This airline is called Air Koryo, and it is known as the world's only one-star airline. They want to fly on the old Soviet planes, still in use by Air Koryo. These planes are almost gone everywhere else, even in Russia. But in North Korea, they still fly. As the engines roar to life, an eerie silence falls over the cabin, punctuated only by the creaks and groans of the aging aircraft. The only way to enter North Korea is from China or Russia, either by plane or by train. My first trip started with a flight from Beijing on Air Koryo's Aviation 62. You can't buy tickets online for this airline. Instead, you need to be part of a group tour, which also helps get your visa. The North Korean visa is a blue tourist card, and they don't stamp your passport. We remember getting on the plane, sitting in the last row by the window, next to two North Korean men. When the engines started, the noise was incredibly loud, almost like music to an airplane lover. The flight lasted about 1.5 hours as we flew northeast out of China to North Korea. The plane felt old, and you could hear and feel everything as it moved. The seats were worn, and the inside of the plane seemed like it was stuck in another time. The flight attendants were polite, but quiet. They served simple meals that matched the basic feel of the airline. Nothing fancy, just practical. The whole experience wasn't about comfort. It was more about the unique feeling of traveling back in time. North Korea doesn't allow much contact with the outside world, but flying on Air Koryo gave me a small look into their unusual way of life. However, the journey had its tough moments. The old planes may be interesting, but they aren't exactly comfortable. Still, for many, that's what makes it special. The flight attendants, dressed in bright red uniforms, moved quickly and efficiently up and down the aisles. They made sure everyone was taken care of, though it was clear they didn't want anyone taking photos. Despite the rules, they were polite and professional throughout the journey. The landing? That was something I'll never forget. The roar from the engines was the loudest I've ever heard on a plane. The airport in Pyongyang doesn't have an instrument landing system, so the pilots have to land the plane by sight alone, which added to the excitement. After we landed, the crew invited me to visit the cockpit of the Aviation 62. Inside, we saw a maze of green controls and instruments. It was a lot more complicated than we imagined, with 5 people needed to fly the plane. 2 pilots, an engineer, a radio operator, and a navigator. Stepping off the plane, we entered Pyongyang's old passenger terminal. It was dimly lit and seemed quiet until the passengers arrived. Back in 2008, the biggest plane to ever land at this airport was a Boeing 747-400. It brought the New York Philharmonic for a concert, which was a big deal for the airport and the country. Our journey deep into North Korea begins with a surprising rule change at the border, navigating North Korea's airspace. After we went through immigration and customs, we remembered one thing that stood out. We had to give up our mobile phones. We would only get them back when we left North Korea. Once we arrived, we were welcomed by 2 young women who would be our guides for the trip. They worked for the Korea International Travel Company, a government agency that handles tours for most visitors. The guides were impressive. They spoke English fluently and knew a lot about their country. It was obvious they were among North Korea's elite, chosen to meet with visitors and show them around. They were highly educated and also acted as supervisors, making sure we followed the rules during our stay. We chose to go on an aviation tour, which meant we got to fly across the country. This allowed us to see more than the usual 5-day tour, which typically includes just staying in Pyongyang and visiting the DMZ. We flew on a plane called an Illusion 18, which was built in the 1960s. The flight took us from Pyongyang to Samjeon, a town at the northern tip of the country, close to the border with China. The flight was an unforgettable experience. The plane was powered by 4 huge engines, and the noise they made was hard to miss. We have to give credit to the team for keeping such an old plane in great shape. The whole experience was truly unique, offering us amazing views of the country from the sky. But this wasn't even the most surprising part. What really stood out was how everything was so controlled. Every moment felt like it was carefully planned. In the later stages, they made improvements to the inside of the planes. After that, they switched to flying a large propeller aircraft completely by hand. With upbeat music playing in the background, we started our trip to Mount Paektu. This mountain is deeply respected by all Koreans, and many believe it's the birthplace of North Korea's leader. North Korea often struggles with electricity shortages, and when we got to Mount Paektu, the cable car wasn't working. This meant we had to hike up to the viewing point at the top. After enjoying the view, we had to walk back down along the cable car route, which was quite a workout and burned many calories that day. During the last health crisis, North Korea's airline, Air Koryo, stopped flying internationally for almost 3 years, since the country completely closed off from the world. It wasn't until late 2023 that they started flying again, with routes to Beijing and later to Shenyang and Vladivostok in Russia. Right now, they have only 3 planes in use, 2 Tupolev 204 jets and 1 Antonov 148 from Ukraine. We still don't know if the older Soviet planes, like the Ilyushin 62 or other models, such as the Tupolev 154 and 134, or even the Antonov 24 or U-18, are still flying. They probably keep these planes for short flights within the country, just to make sure they stay in working condition. But that wasn't the end of the surprises. In 2014, during my second trip to North Korea from Beijing, we flew on a modern Russian-made Tupolev 204 twin-engine jet. This was a big change from my first flight, which was on a Soviet Ilyushin 62. That plane had actually been banned from entering China because it was too loud under the noise regulations. Touching down, we dive into the unexpected details of everyday life here, discovering Air Koryo's newest jets. During the flight, we noticed something a bit unusual. The flight attendant changed into a dark, brand-new uniform. It felt fresh and official. In business class, passengers were treated to a sandwich and a beer. Meanwhile, in economy, passengers received a burger with some mystery meat in the middle, all wrapped in paper. The flight attendants were really friendly, though they kept reminding everyone not to take pictures. Of course, no one paid much attention to that. Everyone was too excited to be on this flight, wanting to capture as much of the experience as possible. But the food wasn't the most interesting part. After we landed, we got a chance to check out the cockpit of the Tupolev 204, a modern plane with all the latest gadgets. It was quite a view. That wasn't the only aircraft we experienced, though. On this trip, we were lucky enough to try out a completely new plane. It was the Antonov 148, which had just been added to Air Koryo's fleet. This was their first new plane in over 25 years. The last time they got a new aircraft was way back in 1985, when they got 2 Tupolev 134 straight from the factory. We took a short, scenic flight on the Antonov, lifting off from Pyongyang. The engines roared, and upbeat music played throughout the cabin. The flight itself lasted about 40 minutes, which flew by pretty quickly. The engines roared to life, marking the start of our trip. As we flew, we got to experience all of Air Koryo's planes, including the Ilyushin 76, Tupolev 134, Tupolev 154, and Antonov 24. Each plane was different, and we enjoyed every aviation tour, However, it's not clear if these planes are still in use. It wouldn't be surprising if they were, since Air Koryo likely does what it can to keep them running, occasionally using them for domestic flights to keep them active. This brings up an important point about traveling in North Korea. If you're curious whether you can explore the country freely on your own, the answer is simple. No, you can't. You are required to have 2 tour guides with you at all times. While this might seem a bit restrictive, the guides are actually quite friendly. They are not only knowledgeable but also fun, often showing off their musical talents, like singing during karaoke sessions. Now let's talk about what it's like to tour inside North Korea. The tours are very organized, and you are taken to specific places that highlight the country's history and achievements. At some sites, there's an expectation to show respect, such as bowing in front of statues of the country's leaders. The tour guides, often called minders, carefully watch how tourists behave, especially when it comes to showing proper respect at these important locations. But here's something that might catch you off guard. While the tours are structured, they also have moments of surprise, like when the guides casually challenge tourists to karaoke. One of the best places to meet a lot of people from North Korea is in the busy Pyongyang metro. This underground system is known for its grand look and depth. You can still find old East German metro cars running here, even though they've been in use for over 30 years. Now, let's talk about food. In North Korea, especially in the countryside, the food can be pretty simple and not very good. Many visitors have gotten sick from eating too much seafood. It's something to be cautious about if you ever visit. Next, we're swept into the excitement of North Korea's rare air show, inside North Korea's first international air show. As for places to stay, our group was put up at the Koryo Hotel, a pair of tall towers considered a 4-star hotel by local standards. It's one of the few hotels where foreigners are allowed to stay. The rooms were interesting and had their own unique setup. One of the most memorable trips I've had to North Korea was in 2016. We went to the first ever international air show in the country, the Wonsan Air Show. It felt like stepping back in time, like we were transported 50 years into the past. The air show was full of energy, with different planes giving tours over Wonsan. Both locals and international visitors were enjoying the event. However, the most impressive part was the rare chance to see North Korea's military in action. We saw planes from the North Korean Air Force, including the Air Koryo Ilyushin 18 and the Korean People's Army MiG-29. These kinds of displays are almost never shown to the Western world, making the whole event even more special. As the engines roared to life, Charles couldn't help but be reminded of an air show you might see anywhere else in the world. The familiar hum of the jet engines mixed with the distant thump of pop music, while people around chatted and enjoyed the day. Flags flapped in the breeze, carrying the delicious smell of grilled food. Each plane took its turn in the sky, one after the other, as the next lined up, ready to go. Wondering how everything seemed to flow so smoothly, especially since it was their first time, we decided to ask the organizers about it. They shared that they had prepared by watching videos of famous air shows in places like Riyadh and Farnborough. It seemed their hard work paid off, as everything was running flawlessly. Sam noticed the energy in the crowd growing with each thrilling helicopter pass, or whenever a plane performed an impressive trick. The lively music and cheers from the audience almost made you forget for a moment that this was happening in North Korea. The show kept the excitement high when the MiG-21 appeared, its engines roaring with power. This part was even more special because it featured 2 female pilots who showed great skill and precision. Right after that, a 4-engine Ilyushin 62 made a low pass, impressing everyone with its huge presence. As the day went on, the sounds of different aircraft filled the air. The MiG-17 helicopter and the Ilyushin 76 added to the thrilling display. The N-24 also flew by, wrapping up a day full of excitement and precision, just like any big international air show. At 4:30 in the afternoon, the low roar of airplane engines echoed through the sky. As the plane soared above us, the scent of jet fuel lingered in the air, a smell that, surprisingly, wasn't unpleasant at all. For anyone passionate about aviation, The experience was pure excitement. It wasn't just the aircraft themselves that made the day memorable, though. Being at the air show, I, Charles, found myself learning about the everyday lives of North Koreans in a way we never thought possible. Normally, tourists like me don't get the chance to interact with locals so freely, but this time was different. For the first time, we were allowed to walk among a crowd of 20,000 North Korean citizens. Markets in North Korea are a key part of the country's economy and daily life. These markets don't just allow people to trade goods, they also help keep the economy stable and provide many families with a way to make a living. In recent years, especially after North Korea declared the last health crisis, there have been some changes in how these markets operate. The government has started to relax some of the rules, allowing more market activities to happen. This helps boost economic growth and allows the government to collect more money from market fees. Now, we explore the bustling markets, where locals hustle to adapt and survive. Navigating new economic frontiers. This relaxation of market rules fits with a bigger shift in North Korea's economic policies. The government has begun processing applications for people who want to open market stalls or commercial stores across the country. Business owners now need to submit plans and pay fees, which shows the government may want to expand and formalize these markets even more. Even though there are still strict regulations, the markets in North Korea have grown and are now an important source of income for many families. They also help stabilize prices for food and other goods. There is a difference between the official markets, which are approved and regulated by the government, and the unofficial or black markets, where trading is less formal and less controlled. In official markets, vendors are required to pay daily fees to the government. In contrast, black markets operate without these rules, though vendors in these markets often have to pay bribes or other unofficial payments to continue operating. Satellite imagery has been helpful in studying these markets, showing their growth and how much economic activity happens there. But that's not all. The way these markets have become part of everyday life in North Korea shows that the government is adapting. By allowing the markets to grow, they can collect more revenue, even while trying to maintain control. This blend of state control and market-driven activities may play a significant role in North Korea's future economic development. Despite the visible poverty and the challenging conditions these people live in, what truly stood out was their ability to keep these old planes flying. The fact that they've maintained these vintage aircraft, some of which have been in service for decades, is a testament to their resourcefulness and determination. Watching them in action was inspiring. We couldn't help but feel deep admiration for their resilience, especially given how limited their resources must be. If our connection with North Korea seemed so warm, why are global walls still so high? Or is it all just for show? Comment your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more.